Earlier on in the year, we got Oblivion Remastered, and then not too long after that, Tainted Grail Fall of Avalon came out. And one is a Scrolls game, the other is a Scrolls-like, and everybody loved Tainted Grail. And you probably clicked on this video about a 2025 Scrolls-like, a new term that's been coined basically this year, and thought you would get a video on Tainted Grail. But no, it's time for Tainted Grail to move over, because there's a new Scrolls-like out, and it's called The RPG. And just a side note for the devs, it is very hard to search for that game name on Google. And in an effort to cover more indie games on this channel, I played it for a few hours, and what I found was really entertaining. It's an RPG that knows exactly what it's trying to be. It's not trying to take up a lot of your time, and that's exactly where I feel some of these indie games should be. They almost fit in as palate cleansers, because we're going from big RPG to the next one to a massive narrative game. So having these games fill in the gaps in between is just brilliant. So hi, my name's Adam. I mostly cover RPGs and open world games, so if you like that sort of stuff, stick around. So let me just tell you a little bit about The RPG. See, this game is a parody of RPGs, specifically things like Skyrim, and you start in the back of a wagon. There's a character talking to you. There's also another one that has his mouth bound. But unlike Skyrim, this guy wasn't some political prisoner. He just had his mouth taped because he had bad breath, and later on there was a quest where I had to actually go fix it. So I was walking around the village going on a wild goose chase trying to fix it. I went to the healer eventually fixed it, and then the mouth tape came off. There's just a green smelly odor coming from this character, and that sort of sums up that this game is just trying to be fun. It's not trying to be anything too deep. And then just after that, you meet the dragon. Now, of course, this is a Skyrim game, so there is going to be a dragon, but instead, this dragon is glitchy, which, you know, I guess you could say is very similar to Skyrim, and he starts glitching out in the world. He destroys a bridge, and then you get to create your character. And you're actually greeted by the developer, who wishes you a fun time playing the game. That's just nice to see. And it's from there where I realized just exactly what kind of game this is. When you break stuff, you get experience. When you pick things up, you don't pick up the actual item. It just goes all into a loot pile, because this is an RPG light. Yes, you are leveling up. Yes, you are upgrading your health and damage and stamina, that sort of stuff. But it is an RPG light. And the main loop, of course, is that you're talking to different people, you're getting different quests. But then you're also collecting all of this loot to go sell it to get gold, to once again do a very rudimentary upgrade system where you just get incremental upgrades on your weapons, armor, and then eventually you also get a ranged weapon. And I wasn't expecting this. I thought maybe there would have been some form of magic, but no, you have a gun that shoots mushrooms for whatever reason. You upgrade that in the same way, just kind of in a bit of a linear fashion. There are things that can upgrade its reload speed and its accuracy, but that's what you're doing. And the whole story is that the cool king is basically sending you on a wild goose chase to help him out. And in the village there is a dungeon, and it's not just like a dungeon that you would explore in any other RPG. Instead, it's almost like an attraction. This is basically like Disneyland, but for adventurers. But I would actually say it's a bit more like Duloc from Shrek, because it has that sort of a feel. You go in, you give the guy 3 coins to unlock the dungeon. Every single time you go through the turnstile, you go in to the lift, and then you go down, and there's different floors and different levels. One would be a tutorial level, and then there's one where there's spiders, and there's another where it's all built around traps, and then there's another where there are no bonfires, and bonfires are the game's checkpoints. I don't think they respawn enemies. They also don't replenish a flask of any description, so it's not a Souls-like. It is just a Scrolls-like. And then there's one floor where there's no bonfires, and the king wants you to go in because there's specifically a bonfire salesman who's trying to sell you bonfires. And there is a bit of choice and consequence. Now, I haven't beaten this game, so I don't know how it all ends up in the end, but here you're confronted with a choice. The king wants you to get rid of the guy, or you can just pay the guy money to put a bonfire down and keep him there. And that's where the little choices come in. And as you're doing stuff for the king, you will meet the glitchy dragon, and he will get in your way and he'll tell you things, and it's definitely leaning into something where something isn't as it seems. And I have a feeling that the dragon is actually going to end up being the good guy, so I have been siding with him. Plus, some of the quests and the things that he actually wants you to do are more entertaining than what the king wants you to do, because just like in Skyrim, at the end of these dungeons you get a dragon shout, and they do different things like speed you up. You can shoot fire or ice out of your mouth, but then there's one you get later on. I'm roughly about 3.5 hours in, and it's called Frenzy. And when you get introduced to it, the dragon then stops you and just says, here, look, I want you to use these on the guards captains, because It'll just be funny, so please go do it. So then you go to the castle, you use the shout on the guards, and then they all just start attacking each other. And the thing is, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that throughout my couple of hours with this game, I was having the best time in the world. It is very primitive, it's very basic, but I think with a lot of indie games, a lot of them try to be too ambitious or they overstep and they end up sort of losing the run of themselves, whereas when a game knows exactly what it is and really hones in on that, I think that's when these indie games just fit perfectly into most normal people's schedules, because I think a lot of us as gamers, we play mostly AAA titles. I go for a mixture of indie, AA, AAA, whatever, older games. It doesn't really matter to me. But since I am reviewing a lot of games and I'm moving from release to new release to new release, I like having these games in between. And just to take it back to a game that I played earlier in the year that I only made a little short video on, it was Shadow Labyrinth, and that was the Pac-Man Metroidvania. And that game, I guess, is probably AA or whatever. It's published by Bandai Namco, so maybe it's a bigger game. But the problem with that is I was expecting it to have a cool premise of, oh, this is a Pac-Man Metroidvania, and it is, but I played 5 or 6 hours of the game, and I was still waiting for the special sauce of, oh, why is this a Pac-Man game to come true? And eventually, when reviews came out and I heard people saying that it's 20, 30 hours long, and I'm like, what? Like, I don't understand where you're coming from, giving me a 30-hour long Metroidvania. In almost every single case, even the best Metroidvanias in the world, they shouldn't be 30 hours long. Like Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown last year, it's nowhere near that length. So when a game knows exactly what it should be, and that is exactly what the RPG is, they just slot in so much better. If I go back earlier on in the year, I played a game called Fly Night. I believe it was made by one person, and it was trying to be a Kingsfield-like. It had co-op, so me and my friends played it, but again, I think I paid €5 or €5.50 for it, and it lasted us a full play session, and we still have another play session to do. So it just slotted in perfectly, and that's exactly what the RPG has done for me. Now, just like everything else, the combat is quite basic. You literally have a hold down power attack, a normal attack, a block you can perfect block. You also have your gun you can shoot enemies with, and then you have your shouts that deal damage, and they deal a lot of damage. And again, I think if you were to sit down and say, oh, it's quite primitive, all you do is left click and you might do a block and maybe use a shout and shoot some enemies. It is very spammy. It's not very in-depth. And you're just going to spam healing items to keep yourself up. Like, it's really not much to it at all. But again, I think if I was to sit down here and properly critique this game and analyze it and do a proper full-on review of how this system works and why this system doesn't work, I think I'm almost losing the point of what this game is, because all this game is trying to be is a, I don't know, 6 to 10 hour experience where you just sit down, you have some fun, it's not super deep. And I mean, that's exactly what the RPG game is. Weird name though, that's the only problem. Very difficult to search for, but it is a game that I would recommend you check out. Right now, I don't have a price on it, so if the price gets revealed, or I'll contact the developer or whatever and try to figure it out, but I can't imagine that this is going to be super expensive. So it is something I would recommend you check out. There is a demo. I don't know exactly what the demo is, but there is a demo on Steam, so you can check it out, and it has really good reviews. It's just a fun game. That's all it is, and it doesn't need to be anything more or less than that. It's just fun. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next video.